We are back now with Overtime with Senator McMorrill, and nice to have you on the program. We will talk about your book in a little bit, okay? But I promised Joey a question.
The story in 2016 was that the polls undercounted the amount of Trump voters in Michigan. I'm wondering, in Oakland County, in Metro Detroit, do you think there's any chance that the polls are undercounting the number of female women voters that might vote for Kamala Harris that are in households that have Trump, but, because of reproductive rights, might just not be saying that they're voting for Harris?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there is just a heavy skepticism across the board right now with people wanting to answer their phone, even getting texts. I get people screenshotting texts to me and they say, somebody said this is a poll. Is it true? I don't want to click on it. So this is why I take every poll with a grain of salt. I'm sure that there's that on both sides. I'm sure there's people who are voting for Trump and don't want to say it. And I'm sure there's a lot of women who just don't want to answer the phone because of how many scam calls there are now.
I'm curious about on the state level and what the entire ballot, obviously the state House of Representatives is up for election too. You're in the Senate. You don't have to worry about that right now. But from what you've seen so far from this year in the state legislature, from the state offices that are on the race, we always talk about the down ballot effect and whether or not the top of the ticket can help the down ballot races. But do you see this as an opportunity, or do you feel like Democrats have earned the opportunity for the down ballot races to affect the top of the ticket?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. You are talking my talking point that I've been using the last 6 years, which is we have to be talking about reverse coattails. Through my PAC this cycle, I'm supporting 13 state House candidates, will be contributing about $130,000 all in for state House candidates. And we're also knocking on doors as a group in at least 7 of them. So I brought 14 volunteers out to knock with Matt Kolzar. We're going to be out for Denise Menser this weekend. And what I am pitching to, frankly, my donors and a lot of volunteers is that having a strong, I don't even like calling it a bench because a bench implies that your job doesn't matter. You're going to get promoted at some point. This is the foundation. And if we can ensure that we have a strong foundation in the state House, it improves Vice President Harris's chances. So we saw this in the immediate aftermath of Kamala running. Massive uptick in fundraising for her. She's had a windfall of cash that didn't necessarily trickle down ballot. So that's the pitch that I'm making out is we've got to do all of the above. And I am all about building the foundation.
But in terms of what the legislature has actually done, I guess, obviously Democrats accomplished a lot in the first few months of their term of last year when they took over. And this year the House had that even 54-54 split. They couldn't get a lot done without Republican votes, which weren't there. But do you feel like, in terms of the politics of what have you done for me lately, that there's enough of that pitch there for voters? The legislature has largely been inactive since June. They've done a few things here and there, but do you feel like it's got done enough to catch the eye?
I think there absolutely is because of how ineffective and gridlocked Congress has been. In the last few years, they haven't been able to get anything done. So when you're talking about many of the issues that the vice president and Governor Walz are running on, gun violence being a huge issue, that is something that we're able to point to on the state level and say, hopefully, if this all goes the way that we hope it does, Michigan and what we've been able to do on the state level can be a predictor of our future on the federal level when it comes to universal background checks and safe storage and red flag laws, which, I led that legislation. It was my first bill ever signed into law. It took me 5 years. And people, particularly moms, going back to suburban women, this is a very salient issue for them. And I think that is a message that we're hearing loud and clear on the doors as we see so many senseless gun violence deaths continue to happen, that they want to see action. So we can say, we've gotten it done here in Michigan, we have more to do, and we're going to help all the way up the ballot be able to get this done on the federal level as well.
If you don't mind really quickly, if Republicans flip the state House, should we expect 2 years of inaction?
I wish I could say no. I served in the minority for 4 years, and I voted with Republicans 98, 99% of the time. I would never have voted against the budget, ever. It would just, to me, completely dishonest. You get into this job to pass. And there were a lot of line items in the budget that I disagreed with in my first 4 years, of course. But at the end of the day, we needed to fund our schools and our healthcare system and our roads. We haven't seen that with this Republican minority. They've voted against their own bills. They've voted against the budget. Trying to get immediate effect on some things has been a real challenge. And I think it is the worst of the Mitch McConnell brand of obstructionism has taken over what has traditionally been a very moderate, functional Republican Party that we don't see anymore. So, my fear is that if Democrats lose the state house, the Matt Hall version is to grind everything to a halt, and we could see a government shutdown. And I don't think that's acceptable, and I think voters should hold them accountable.
And to that point, from your perspective, as not on the ballot, but obviously very involved, what's the strategy for Democrats to keep it? It's not quite as simple as driving people out, and turnout-wise, it's a little more complicated in these competitive regions. What's the strategy to make it happen and keep Democrats in control?
I think that we have to be very honest with ourselves. Most people don't know who their state legislators are. So we can't disconnect ourselves from national politics. But the challenge that Democrats have had traditionally that we're finally catching up on is we haven't had the resources to compete in getting our own message out there. I know that the state house has ads running all around the state right now, and Democrats are outspending Republicans 10-1. So $30 million on ads for state house candidates versus about $3 million from the Republican side. That stuff matters in local races. And what we saw when the Senate was last up in 2022 was being able to get out early with bio-led messages. Veronica Kleinfeld is one of my favorite people, and she's the most Macomb County senator you could ever see. Being able to introduce her to Macomb County as somebody who rooted out fraud and corruption at the local level from both Republicans and Democrats was really important. So that's the strategy that I know we're replicating now is getting out there with ads, getting out there on doors. That's why I'm so committed to getting out and canvassing with many of these candidates to say, I'm in a weird place in my life now where people recognize me if they happen to watch CNN or MSNBC or occasionally Fox News, who called me liberal Karen with a headband once. But if they see me at their door and they recognize me, I can tell them very confidently about my colleague in the State House, why I'm here, why it matters, and how they're going to make their life better.
Senator, assuming that the Democrats do maintain control, assault weapons ban in the new year?
No.
Why not?
So this is something that people ask me about all the time, especially every time there's a mass shooting event, is can we move an assault weapons ban? And I understand the reason for that ask. I lost a friend in the Virginia Tech shooting. It's deeply personal. I've lived it for, now 20 years. But the reality is that a majority of gun violence is not with AR-15s, it's with handguns. It's with guns that are left out. And it also doesn't factor in the fact that we border Indiana. And if we were to pass an assault weapons ban in Michigan, I don't think it would do anything to stem the flow of illegal guns from Indiana. This has to be something that's done on the federal level. I'm also a part of the White House's Office of Gun Violence Prevention. It is something that we're talking about with other state legislators and on the federal level. But I can tell you I'm working on legislation right now related to ghost guns and how we deal with the inflow of 3D printed weapons, kit purchase weapons, and how we manage that. So there's a number of different issues we're looking at related to gun violence, but I wouldn't.
Correct my memory. Didn't the shooter in Oxford have a semi-automatic weapon?
Yes.
Like an AK-15? That was in your backyard.
Yeah, from his dad, and became the first, I have to give a lot of credit to Karen McDonald for prosecuting that case. And she flat out said when she took it on that this is not a home run because we didn't have safe storage requirements as law in Michigan yet. That was one of the most egregious cases you've ever seen of a parent buying their son the firearm, training on it, ignoring so many cries for help and cries for counseling. But again, I don't think that an in-state assault weapons ban prevent that from happening if you've got parents who either already have access to it or it comes in from out of state versus many of these other things that we are now seeing where we became the first state in the country to successfully prosecute and hold parents accountable for a school shooting. That is now leading the rest of the country.
Senator, let's put a ribbon on this, but before we do, you've written a book.
Yes.
Is it selling better than the governor's?
It's not out till March, so no. I've sold 0 copies. Thank you for asking.
And why did you write a book if you weren't running for governor?
I used to be a writer. So before I got into this job, I was a journalist, if you can call automotive journalism. So I wrote for Road and Track. I contributed pieces to Jalopnik and Jezebel, largely about sexism and misogyny in the auto industry, which, as you can imagine, made me very popular in the comment section. But I've always loved writing. And over the last few years, after I gained weird notoriety from an attack on me in 2022, I've had the ability to travel the country. I have talked to people, thousands of people of all different backgrounds, who say some version of, I'm so overwhelmed, I am so exhausted by what's going on, I want to get involved and I have no idea where to start. So I've had thousands of these conversations and I wanted to put it all down in one place. So it is a very practical guide for people, it's for the reader, on I want to know how to interact with the government effectively. I want to know how to tell a story. I want to know how to network my neighborhood. And it was important to me to inspire other people. That's something I really like.
Name of the book?
Hate Won't Win, How to Find Your Power and Leave This Place Better Than We Found It.
Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too.